What's up guys, Okan here, back at it with another video. Now, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We made it through 2021 with the skin of our teeth. Well, by the skin of our teeth. But we're here in 2022. Let's get it started off. Spider-Man No Way Home. Let's talk. Now, I do want to start this video by saying this will be filled with spoilers. I'm going to do my first spoiler review. So if you don't want to see spoilers, or if you haven't seen the movie yet, exit stage left, because there's going to be spoilers everywhere in here. I'm just going to be talking about stuff that happened in the movie. I'm not going to be like deep diving or doing like some deductions or anything like that, like one of those channels that goes through and like tries to find every little detail about it. But I am going to be talking about things that I saw and things that interested me and things that even bothered me a little bit that may contain spoilers. So again, this is your final warning. If you don't leave, tough shit, let's deal with it. Let's start the review now. So, Spider-Man No Way Home is essentially about Peter Parker dealing with the aftermath of his identity being revealed to the world and the toll it takes on his family and friends, as well as dealing with villains coming into his world from the multiverse trying to kill him and just thrive in this new universe that they're in. I guess that's what Electro does anyway, but everybody else is pretty much not on his side, trying to kill him, trying to just be bad guys for the sake of being bad guys. And that is one gripe I do have. No one really has any motivation other than just being villains. Besides, well, I guess if you know their motivations from when their films came out, then it's fine. But in this film, if you go into this film with no prior context and you don't know these villains from what they used to be, then it looks like they have no motivations. Sorry to start it on a bad note, but that's kind of something that just popped into my mind right now. So I did want to get it out of the way. But other than that, let's just dive in. Now, just talking about it face value, straight off the top, without really diving into anything too deeply, what did I think about this film? Well, I honestly think it's the best Spider-Man film to date within the John Watts trilogy. The best live-action Spider-Man film to date out of all the Tobey Maguires, the Andrew Garfields, and the Tom Holland films. Spider-Verse is still better than this in my opinion, but out of all the Spider-Man films, but that's a different conversation. And it's also in my personal top 5 MCU movies out of all the films that have come out so far. That's how I feel about it. That's how good this film was to me. It had an insurmountable amount of hype. I hope I used that word correctly. It had a crazy amount of hype behind it, to the point where it couldn't even be like matched in my opinion, but it somehow even still exceeded my expectations when the credits rolled in this film. I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was. I was expecting it to be great, because I was scared too, because, you know, there was a lot of moving parts in the trailers. There's a lot going on here, and those do kind of bog the film down a little bit. But for the most part, and for the majority of this film, everything that went on was pretty much A+ in my opinion. Like, it was beautiful, and I loved it all. And let's just get into why I loved it all right now. So I want to start with the plot a little bit. Now, I did give a brief synopsis earlier, but that's just barely touching the surface of what's going on in this film. There's a lot of different things that are happening in this movie that are really hurting Peter Parker's life. Now, you've got his identity being revealed by Mysterio to the world, and so now you've got him dealing with villains attacking him. You've got his teachers praising him, some of them calling him a villain. Hannibal Buress's character, who's hilarious in this film, he makes his return, and he was basically saying, Mysterio was right, you know what you did, and it was funny throughout the whole thing. He's a great actor. But you got his teachers doing that stuff. You've got his family suffering. They're all being interrogated, questioned, and then you've got them not even getting into colleges because of everything that went down. So a lot of negative things going on for them before the villains even start coming through, and it just sucks for Peter Parker initially. And then on top of all that, you have the villains that start coming through and start attacking him without any prejudice or anything like that, and it's just like, damn, this is that And it's kind of a meme online that people are like, oh, you guys are so weird for liking to see Peter Parker struggling because that's when his character is at his best. But it kind of is. Like, when his character is going through it, that's when his stories are the best. And it's fiction at the end of the day, so it's not like I'm really rooting for somebody real to be struggling in real life, because that would be shitty. But if it's a fictional character and they're struggling and it makes for a better story, who am I to disagree? You know what I mean? But I do like the way all these moving parts come together, and I like that Jon Watts is able to make a film like this for the third time in a row that makes all these characters blend and mesh together well. It makes the story mesh together really well, and it makes everything just feel cohesive for the most part, and it makes a brilliant story at the end of the day. So on the topic of Jon Watts, let's talk about his directing style just a little bit. So I do want to talk about how the other two Spider-Man films were. Now, these films struggled with us seeing Spider-Man and Peter Parker break free from the reins of being Iron Boy or Iron Man Jr. and all these things, in the MCU at least, because in the comic books, it doesn't really play out that way. He's not really a super Iron Man fan like that. He does work with him in Civil War, and then eventually stops working with him. That doesn't matter though. But I'm talking about Civil War, the comic book, not the movie. Anyway, I'm getting off track. Let me rein it back in. But in this film, he finally comes into his own a little bit, because the first two films were still coming of age stories. Like, he was fighting essentially, in the comic books, these are his villains, Mysterio and the Vulture, or Spider-Man villains. But in the MCU, they're only his villains because he has to fight them, because they're technically Iron Man's villains, and he's connected to Iron Man in these films in a way that makes these villains dislike him. So he ends up fighting them, and so it doesn't feel like they're authentically Spider-Man villains. They're only villains through Iron Man, and that kind of annoyed me because of the way that they went about it. But in this film, he comes into his own, and these are all just Spider-Man villains. They don't have any connection to Iron Man in any way, and in terms of like why they're angry or why they became villains or anything like that. So I really do appreciate that the most. So it shows that he was able to finally let Spider-Man be his own character, let him explore his identity a little bit more, and struggling with balancing that identity with the world, finding out who he was. And I just really appreciate that about what Jon Watts did with this film. It just shows that he's able to make a somewhat he doesn't only make coming of age stories. He's able to make a story that shows a character struggling and going through turmoil and dealing with the ramifications of technically their own actions after a while. And it's nice to see that on screen for a change, in the MCU at least, because we don't really, every character in the MCU pretty much doesn't have a secret identity, and they're all like, it's clear who they are. So seeing a character like this in the MCU get this type of treatment is nice, and I appreciate it. Now, I want to talk about the acting in this film, and I'm going to be talking about the acting for a good while because there's a lot of characters to get through, so bear with me please. But I want to start with Tom Holland, who plays Peter Parker / Spider-Man, and I've been on record already saying that Tom is the best Spider-Man we have in live action today, and I'm sticking with that because in this film, Tom Holland gives a stellar, amazing performance. He gets the nuance of Peter Parker and Spider-Man down to the T. Like, Peter Parker / Spider-Man, they're essentially characters that will do the right thing even if it leaves them unhappy and leaves them in a bad situation. And he got that down to, he just got it right, like in a way that I don't think we've seen on screen before. Like, we've seen it in other iterations of Spider-Man. Like, one of the best Spider-Man stories in my opinion is the PS4 game that came out in 2018, but in live action we haven't seen it like this. And I think just what he went through in this film and what he's going to go through in the future films, it just shows like they set up something amazing. No pun intended by how many times I've said amazing in this review so far, but I think he did a really good job displaying this character and showing off what he can do to the best of his ability. And he's made mention of like not wanting to play this character for much longer, but I really hope he changes his mind and sticks around because he's doing a hell of a good job with it and people love it. Me being one of those people. I don't know how much other people love it, but enough of that. Let's move on to other characters in this film. Before we move on, I do want to just talk about how Spider-Man is better than the rest of us, and Tom Holland got that right, because nigga like me wouldn't have done half of the stuff he did in this film. I would have been on Doctor Strange's side and I would have just let them niggas die, press that button real quick, got them out of there. But that's why he's better than the rest of us, because couldn't have been me. Could not have been me. No Aunt May would have convinced me. None of that. RIP to her, but wouldn't have worked on me. But speaking of Doctor Strange, let's talk about Benedict Cumberbatch playing Doctor Strange once again. I think this is like his 5th time playing it in the MCU, but he did a great job here. A really good performance. Oh god, my battery's gonna die, so let me try and rush through this all. I might have to record it again later, but we'll see. He did a great job playing this character once again. I think his portrayal of Doctor Strange is pretty on point from what I've seen in comics and from what I've seen in other forms of media, and he just gave a pretty good performance. He wasn't a villain in this film, but he was kind of an antagonist to Spider-Man's character in the way of him being on the opposing side of Spider-Man. And they did have a little fight at one point, which was pretty cool, that I really enjoyed. So shout out to Benedict Cumberbatch in this film. We got Zendaya and Jacob Bolton playing MJ and Ned once again in this film, and they are by Peter's side throughout the whole thing, which is really nice because some people I feel like wouldn't have stuck with them, but they played really good characters. And I do like the chemistry between Tom Holland and Zendaya's characters in this film. Of course, they're dating in real life, which I hate because she should be with me, but that's neither here nor there. I'd rather us have chemistry. Moving on. They had really good chemistry, and it felt like high school love, I guess, so to speak, whenever they were on screen together, and I really enjoyed that. So shout out to them for being able to make that work. And I'm sure it has something to do with them having real life chemistry at the end of the day, but they're still actors and they acted very well as well. So good for them. Good for them, I guess. Marissa Tomei returns to play Aunt May in this film, and I think she plays Aunt May the best that she's been played in live action. And it's kind of a twist of her character, because in this film she's the one that gave the "with great power comes great responsibility" line instead of Uncle Ben, which is not how it goes in the comics, not how it's gone in the previous films. But I guess they wanted to do something different this time, because we haven't seen Uncle Ben. We didn't see him die. We haven't seen his character at all in any of these films. So they wanted to twist it up, and it worked in my opinion. And then she dies. Yeah, Aunt May dies in this film at the hands of Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, and he's batshit, but we'll get to him in a second, because whoo boy. But yeah, she gave a great performance. It's a very sad scene to see through Peter's eyes of her dying. It made me tear up a little bit in the theater. I was shedding some tears, but she gave a great performance all the way to her untimely demise at the hands of his glider. Damn, she got hit hard. I was like, there's no way she survived that. And then she got up for a little bit, and then she died again. Well, I guess Jess died in the first place, but yeah, it sucked. But good acting on her part at the end of the day. All right, Wong, Benedict Wong is his name, I believe, who plays Wong. He's great at just disappearing when the world needs him the most. I love that. I love that they've kind of made that a reoccurring thing in these films. He just goes through portals and is just gone for the rest of the film, and it's great. And she can just keep doing that because it works for him and it works for me. So no complaints. Alright, on to the villains. So Alfred Molina returns as Doc Ock in this film, and he gives an amazing performance in my opinion. He killed it back in 04, I think it was 04, and he killed it here too. He was good as a villain, and then later once Peter fixed the inhibitor chip in his neck, he was basically made a good guy again, and I think he did a good job just acting at that point. Jamie Foxx makes his return as Electro, and he looked and acted miles better in this film. No stupid comb over, no blue skin, no awkward personality or big gap. He's just a regular Electro guy with an arc reactor that amps up his powers, which I really liked that they included that. Just normal shit. Sandman and the Lizard also show up here, but we don't really see the actors until the third act. I'd say they were the weakest of the bunch, and yeah, I wasn't a big fan of their performances too much, but you know who wasn't the weakest of the bunch? Goddamn Willem Dafoe, that's who. This man was ape shit, and he went super hard. Willem Dafoe put his defussy in this role, and I appreciate that. Shout out to him. He went crazy. It's like he just was given like he was just given the ability, he was given the instruction to play this character the most insane he could, and just go hard in the paint. And he went hard in the paint, and I loved it. He was probably the best part of this film, without a doubt. He was the biggest antagonist. At this point now, one of the best MCU villains, just by how much he effed with Peter's life in this movie. I don't know who's the bigger troll, him or J. Jonah Jameson in this film, but yeah, he went hard, and I loved it. Every second he was on screen was just magnificent. So shout out to Willem Dafoe. And I really like the fact that he didn't want to come back unless he could do his own stunts, which is, again, insane of him, but he's a crazy guy, so he did a crazy thing, and it paid off in the end. So really good work by him. I appreciate it a lot. Moving on from Willem Dafoe, though, let's move on to the big elephant in the room. Yes, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire are in this film. Both previous Spider-Mans showed up. They came through portals. They're in this movie, and it was insane to see them on the screen, sharing the big screen with Tom Holland. I think it was just incredible how they were able to get them back. I don't know how hard it was to get them back. I know for Andrew, it probably wasn't too hard. For Toby, probably a different story from what I've heard. But just seeing these two on the big screen with Tom Holland, and they're all in their Spider-Man suits, and just bouncing jokes off of each other, making jokes that you only understand if you've seen the previous Spider-Man films. Just insanely funny and just insanely cool, and recreating that pointing Spider-Man meme. Super funny, super cool. No jokes really went on too long in my opinion. They all worked out well, and seeing them all on screen was just, again, a treat. But I think besides Willem Dafoe, Andrew Garfield gave the best performance in this film. He was just in it 100%. Like, I think out of all the actors, he's the one that's loved playing Spider-Man the most, from what I've heard and from what I've seen in interviews of him. And he just gave it his all. Like, you could tell he was just happy to be back in this role, and it was fantastic to see him do it once again. He was never a bad Spider-Man. He was just given bad films, in my opinion. But that's a conversation for another time. Tobey Maguire, felt like he was phoning it in. Like, he really didn't want to be there, but he's an actor and he had to get that check, so he signed up. And I appreciate him for showing up, if nothing else. He's like the one uncle that comes to the party that just falls asleep at the end. But he didn't fall asleep in the movie, but I just mean by that he doesn't really want to be there, and you can kind of tell. But he just phoned it in, like I said. So again, appreciate him for giving it at least an E for effort, if nothing else. You know what I mean? I quickly want to talk about the action in this film as well. There was a lot of great action. The fight sequences were amazing. Both fights with the Goblin, with the Green Goblin, Tom Holland and Willem Dafoe, were insanely good. Them just crashing through those buildings in the apartment building, crashing through those floors. And then at the end, them fighting on the giant shield that came from the Statue of Liberty was insane too. Really good stunt choreography. I think it was fantastic. And then at one point, seeing all three Spider-Man fight kind of side by side and swinging through the Statue of Liberty all together, and one of them like made a web and whipped the other two, was so cool. Like, that part was just amazing to me. So I really enjoyed it. All the action in this film was really good. Like, I think they did a really good job. I don't know who the stunt choreographer was, but I think they did an A+ job in this movie. Once again, everything in this film pretty much A+, except for a couple things that I am going to talk about right now. So, I will mention there were some shots that were reused from Spider-Man 3 and The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I noticed them, not The Amazing Spider-Man 2, sorry, The Amazing Spider-Man Part 1. The part where the Sandman gets his powers cured, that scene was reused from Spider-Man 3, and the part where the Lizard gets his cure, that was reused from The Amazing Spider-Man. I guess maybe only eagle-eyed viewers could notice this, or people that have seen these movies a lot, but I'm one of those people, and you can't get it past me, buddy. So I noticed it for sure. I don't know why I did that. I noticed it for sure, and it kind of threw me out of the illusion of the film for a little bit, but then it didn't kill it 100%, so I can't complain too much about it. As well as that, I just felt like those two, again, were weak characters in this film. They felt kind of wasted in a way, and I didn't appreciate that they weren't used to their fullest potential, but at the end of the day, I feel like it didn't kill the film. It was just kind of a small gripe that I had while watching this movie. So, all in all, guys, Spider-Man No Way Home is an excellent film. While it does have its flaws, it's still a great story. The story is funny, full of hope, and then gut-wrenching at the end, and it pulls together 20 years of Spider-Man lore in film. And it does kind of suck if you haven't seen those films, because there are jokes you will miss out on, but at the end of the day, it's not to the point where you can't still enjoy the movie. So, it's rare for, in my opinion, to find somebody that wouldn't enjoy this movie. So I think I had a great time watching it. I know a lot of people that had a great time watching it, and I think if you haven't seen it, you will have a great time watching it. So go to hit up the theater, or just wait till it comes to streaming if you don't feel comfortable going to the theater. But I'm sure it's already been spoiled for you. If you haven't seen it yet, I just spoiled it for you. So yeah, that's my review of Spider-Man No Way Home. But yeah, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and end I don't know why I did this right now, but whatever. I'm gonna go ahead and end the video there. I do appreciate y'all's support as always. Very grateful for you guys watching these videos. It's 2022, so new year of content. Let's see what I'm able to dish out for you guys this year. Let me know down below what you thought of this film, what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it. Did you think Willem Dafoe was crazy in this film, completely unhinged? What do you think about Andrew Garfield? All that good stuff, let me know in the comment section down below. And let me know down below what type of videos y'all want to see this year. I'm down for anything, so, you know, it's me versus the world in this channel. So let me know. I'm here, I'm ready, I'm raring to go. So, thanks as always. If you did enjoy this content, go ahead and like, subscribe, and stay tuned to see what type of content I take on next time. Later.
Bye.